couple years ago for our first season of TV, the Focus RS had just come out. It was the new guy in the world of hot hatches and rally-bred monsters. So we put it against pretty much everything.
But now that it's been out a while, I'm wondering if this is still the performance car to either beat or aspire to.
So we're back now, and we brought that past winner to go with the new guy.
This is the 10th generation Civic and the first Civic Type R in the US. Now, before we start the argument, the Integra Type R from 1997 was an Acura branded product. It was not a Honda. This is the first Honda Type R product in America.
So while everyone else in this space has decided that all-wheel drive is a necessity, Honda is standing by the traditional hot hatch recipe and going, nope, we'll be just fine in the hottest hatch with front-wheel drive only.
The car you drive every day should be fun.
But it's got to do the boring stuff too, like commute, be affordable, and run your errands.
You can have both, and we'll help you find it. Fun to drive cars and great driving experiences for everyone.
On Everyday Driver.
Brought to you by Covercraft.
I have to start with the styling on this car because it's so in your face and it is the visual manifestation of bragging. This is a throwdown car. It's kind of like the Aero team took the design team out back and beat the snot out of them and beat them into submission saying, we're gonna win. Because aerodynamics is going to drive the function and the appearance of this car. And you can continue to make the argument that this car is ugly.
It looks like a weird body kit straight from the factory, and that's pretty ridiculous. You're actually limiting your potential buyer by a lot by making a car that looks this absurd. But from the front three-quarter, I think it's a genuinely attractive, menacing car. The straight rear view is just too much.
You're just gonna have to decide whether or not the styling fits your life. If it does, wonderful. If it doesn't, I understand.
Across the board, this is a nicer place to be than the Focus RS. The interior feels very modern, but it's incredibly easy to use. I love the red accent lines on here. The materials are very nice throughout. For a car that starts at $35,000, this one, as we have, is still under $40,000. It's cheaper than the Focus and a nicer place to be. Also considering the fact that the base Civic right now feels like a pretty cheap interior, they've done a good job of making this feel like it's gone upscale just a little bit while still maintaining its Civic bones. A big surprise for me is these front seats. They're actually far more comfortable than the ones in the Focus, and the Focus seats are excellent. A big interior gripe is this touchscreen. I'm sorry, but the stereo should just have a dial for volume. It's got a slider on the side here that pays attention to your finger, maybe 30% of the time.
The Ford Focus RS is a revised ST. The telltale signs are the more aggressive front fascia, rear wing, and badges, but mostly the paint color.
If you look closely, you can see the gold-colored flakes in the paint. This car's muscles have muscles, and I think it would turn your head even if it wasn't painted this gorgeous nitrous blue.
The interior in the Focus looks like every other Focus, except for the blue stitching here and there. It really could be any of the cars in the lineup.
The seating position in the RS is still very upright. Of all the hot hatches we've driven, this is the tallest car. It feels like I'm just way up here. And it's small.
This car is shorter with a shorter wheelbase. You would think both of those things would help the handling, and they do. The downside is, as a daily car, if you want 4 seats, 4 doors, and a hatch, this has less room in the back seat and significantly less room in the hatch. The Recaro seats in the Focus RS feel really good until you climb into the Civic. The bottom cushion pushes your legs together too much, and if you're big guys like us, your shoulders get folded forward and it's really uncomfortable. The clutch is harder in here, which makes it more difficult in traffic, but almost better when you're driving it hard. Plus, the pedals are placed where you can actually heel toe this car.
This car shouldn't be this fast and capable.
So here we are at 300 horsepower, 295 pound-feet of torque. That is an awful lot of power to go through front wheels.
Everyday Driver is brought to you by Covercraft, protection for whatever you drive.
This car shouldn't be this fast and capable. 350 horsepower, 2.3 liter turbocharged, all-wheel drive. Little monster. The power that this car makes is not like a light switch. It's not that turbo instant on feeling. You know it's boosted and you can feel it, but it has the same kind of pull that a naturally aspirated engine does. That's one of the things that I like most about this car. It puts its power down progressively, but very quickly.
It makes sense that this RS has more power than the Civic. It has a larger engine. This 2.3 liter EcoBoost engine, that means turbo, by the way, is the same engine you get in the EcoBoost Mustang. It's tuned here to have more power than it does in the EcoBoost Mustang. When you get in this car after the Civic, you're instantly struck by how much more powerful it is. Now, it's not mind-warping by comparison. It's not like the Civic is anywhere close to slow, but this car always has extra shove over that Civic.
The RS cannot be driven slowly. It turns your world into a racetrack. And then when you're denied and you can't and you're just cruising along, it's not that much fun. Recently, the Focus RS experienced what was known as the head gasket issue. This was a problem for cars built in a certain time period.
These cars, especially the very early build dates, were apparently given an incorrect head gasket that over time does damage to the engine. Luckily, Ford has found the source of the problem. They have stepped up, they are doing engine replacements, and they are fixing the problem on owners' cars, as they should. But of course, when you have a brand new car that comes out that is a new enthusiast icon, you hate for it to have anything like that.
I'm wondering if there's some love lost, if it's kind of fallen out of favor with the enthusiast community. I don't think it should have been, and I think those fears are unfounded because of how good this car is. And once the head gasket issue is taken care of and done with, then there should be no problems, right? Honda's engineers started with the new 10th generation Civic with this car already in their minds. They knew they were going to build the new Type R and bring it to America, and therefore it better be good. A 2-liter turbocharged engine that is very high-strung, but keep in mind, they have to put a warranty on this car, and it's got the Honda badge, which means it needs to last a long time. It also has trickle-down Formula One technology from Honda's Formula One engine program. It has the oil piston cooling gallery, where it squirts oil at the underside of the piston to cool the temperatures in this engine because they know they're extracting a lot of power out of it. And by a lot of power, I mean 306 on paper, but I think Honda has now reached the point where the Germans have. They're toying with us because people have claimed there's 300 at the wheels in the Civic Type R.
That is an awful lot of power to go through front wheels. Most of the time when you get above 250 or so horsepower and torque, the front wheels just give up. So here we are at 300 horsepower, 295 pound-feet of torque. That should be entirely too much. However, Honda has done their best to separate the suspension movements of the front struts from what you need the steering to do. When you push this car really hard, it still kind of gives up. It does admit that it is front-wheel drive because, of course, it can't help itself. It's a little revvy Honda 4-cylinder that likes to be up in the high end of its range, and, of course, paired to a light, very positive 6-speed transmission.
In the Civic Type R, it's excellent. Not only does it match your revs on the downshift, it matches on the up.
Initially, it might seem like Rev Match was something they gave you to give you extra little tech and to help you out, until you realize that the pedals are in the wrong place and you desperately need it because you can't really heel toe in this car.
You might think that gets in the way of the fun and kind of masking and glossing over all the fun, but I say it's adding to it and enhancing it. If you've been wanting a beautiful 6-speed back in your life, the Civic Type R delivers. I'm thrilled to say that.
Thankfully, Ford's put a 2 damper settings button right here on the end of the turn signal stalk, which you are going to want it in the softer setting all the time.
It's like the Focus RS, it changes the damper settings. It changes the steering resistance as well, and the throttle input. There isn't a car that Ford builds that is more of an all-arounder. This car is a hatchback. It's usable. It's got 4 seats. You could theoretically drive this all the time, and this could be your only car. But this is a car that can compete in just about every category that car enthusiasts love. You push the drive mode button once, and it gives you the sub-menu. You can go track use only, up to drift, back to normal, so I'm gonna leave it in sport for now. The difference is noticeable. The throttle response changes, the dampers change, the steering feedback is different, and the car kind of hunkers down. It grips even more than it already was before.
Thankfully, Ford's put a 2 damper settings button right here on the end of the turn signal stalk, which you are going to want it in the softer setting all the time. Unfortunately, the softer setting still isn't soft enough. So you have 2 settings on these dampers, stiff and stiff with a sharp edge.
The steering ratio is a constant ratio. No variable anything here. And it's shocked me how hard you can keep turning into a corner on this car. Now, I'm not saying this is in the league of a GTR where it practically overcomes physics, but the technology that Ford has introduced in this car, it makes you a hero.
This RS is representing all of the latest modern tech of not only all-wheel drive, but all-wheel drive that moves the torque around depending upon where you need it. That means it can push as much as 70% of the power to the rear wheels and then split that 100% either way. The result is that when you push this car into a corner, you can feel it thinking. You can feel it pushing power around. It does actually help. This car rotates right on its center line in a way the Civic just can't.
What was Honda thinking? Didn't they just take a Civic, leave it as a front-wheel drive car, and add a whole bunch of spoilers and aerodynamic bits? No, they didn't. This car is just over 3,100 pounds. So with the ability to control the power through the front wheels by virtue of this knuckle where they have mitigated the torque steer.
Ford's done something similar. They called it the Revo knuckle. GM did something similar. They called it the Super Strut. Toyota used to do it way back in the 90s. It's not new tech. Honda is refining it here to make a front-wheel drive hatch that seems like it can handle all of its business all the time. This handles so well. 9 times out of 10, it hides it. But then you get on it really hard and the turbo really hits and it pulls like any other front wheel drive you've driven because there's too much going on and the front wheels have to give up.
This car makes a lot of power and is very fast. Faster than you think, but it's in that Honda-friendly kind of way. What's cool is they've got 3 modes: comfort, sport, and race. Whereas like the Focus RS, it changes the damper settings. It changes the steering resistance as well, and the throttle input.
The Type R has an electric variable steering rack from about 14.1 to about 11.1, so it can get a tighter ratio than the constant one in that Focus. However, I think it's that variable steering nature that keeps this car from having really any steering feel. You're in full video game steering mode when you drive the Civic.
Unfortunately, you cannot customize it. The steering feedback here, when I pull back into comfort mode, great for steering feel, but not ideal for canyon roads. 1 click forward into sport, the steering precision is still there, but the resistance is more. Now it feels like I'm paddling through molasses.
It is precise, and frankly, it will turn in better than you expect it to. That Focus rotates along its center line. This murders one of its front tires. But chuck this car through a corner. I mean, really force it to work itself in a corner, and you will be shocked at how well it handles. In the ongoing effort to try to harness all of the power and madness going through these front wheels, this has a very aggressive Continental tire on it that says that they will probably wear out in 10,000 miles or less. The rubber on the edge actually looks painted on. This is one of the thinnest sidewalls I've ever seen on a production vehicle, and yet somehow the Civic constantly rides better than the Focus RS. If you're on a less than ideal road, if you live in a city with potholes and bad pavement, the Civic Type R is never going to beat you up like the Focus RS will. You're going to much prefer being in this car in all the normal life situations.
Other hot hatches They're like that bro at the gym that only works on his biceps and his shoulders. And you look at his legs, they're nothing. He's good at one or two things. Not the case with the Civic Type R. It is an athlete. It is good at so many things. And being comfortable on the road and doing the road trip thing well is important. It's back to what Honda proved with the NSX when everybody said, oh, you could drive it like an Accord and just go to the store and go to Starbucks and whatever. You can drive it like a Honda and then it will compete and in some cases destroy. You cannot judge a car by its stat sheet, which is something Todd and I have said for years now.
I actually think the Type R is best at about 80%. But how have they done this? Even in the hardest setting, the R Plus setting, this rides better than the Focus in any setting.
But now it's like picking your tech. Which person are you?
Everyday Driver is brought to you in part by Brush Hero, the ultimate detail brush.
Yeah, I love the RS. I love the refined nature, but still that thing hiding deep inside that's a rebel.
The Focus RS feels like the muscle car of the hot hatch world. You can almost tell this is from an American manufacturer with muscle cars in their roots. It has more of a bruiser attitude. It's a little bit bigger and bulkier and chunkier, but yet it is so aggressive and it works so well. The Civic is a carryover of that lightness and the delicacy that a hot hatch can have. This does not have any delicacy, but it doesn't take away the fact that it's crazy fun.
If you've been thinking about an RS, if you've driven it, you love it, you want it, there's no reason to not buy this car.
On our podcast, we've heard from some owners who have had genuine horror stories with their RS ownership because of the head gasket issue. Going in, getting fixed, coming back, and the car was never quite the same. Others haven't had the issue, or when they got it fixed, it feels like a brand new car. They've had no issues at all.
Also think about car manufacturers, and it's just about every single company on the planet that has problems. And even my beloved Porsche has had their IMS bearing issues.
Take the internet hate under advisement. It is an issue that there is a fix, but it doesn't take anything away from how impressive this car is. When you drive the Focus RS in a commute situation, it's easy to feel like this is a terrible choice. Why am I in this car? What's going on? But then the road opens up and you get a good corner, or you take it on a back road and suddenly you go, oh, now I get it.
These Civic Type Rs are special. So special, in fact, they have a numbered plaque right here in the center console. They want you to know it's special, but they don't have to have any plaque for me to know how good this car is. It's already so much fun and so fast and just enjoyable to drive.
If you like that light touch, razor-sharp Honda feel with the light clutch and the great gearbox and surgical precision, this Civic Type R brings you back to that from Honda. I'm so excited to see this car in their lineup and available now, and it's cheap. This one, like this, is $35,000. How is this car this inexpensive? Granted, people are selling them for $55 and claiming that's the MSRP. It's not. Stop it.
And dealer gouging aside, if you can find one new for 35 grand, this is your car.
I was thinking about how we approached the Focus RS the last time.
Okay.
You know, we had it against the STI and the Golf R and the Evo 10.
Yeah.
And I actually liked the Evo better as just a car to drive. But I chose the RS because I thought it was the better all-arounder. So I'm trying to bring that thinking into this discussion and finding myself surprised. I think the RS of these two is the better car to just drive. If I was just on a track, if I was just doing a canyon, I wasn't going to worry about commuting, I'd choose the RS here.
Yeah.
But I think hot hatches have got to be everything. It's got to be the dad car. It's got to be the commute car. And in that world, the Civic wins. These are both four-star cars for me.
Yeah, they are.
But if I was going to drive either of these daily, I would drive the Civic daily and not the RS.
The Civic and the Type R, it's the race car. It's the hottest, best thing they build. You think it might be the very focused, hardcore, only for a specific audience, especially for the styling.
Yeah.
However, the thinking of making a good all-arounder or the best all-arounder resulted in a great second car.
Interesting, yeah.
And the opposite thinking here, where this is a very focused at only the right market, and actually it's great for everybody.
That's a great point.
Despite the looks.
That's a great
and I get
point.
it. I
yeah,
get
and the looks are really not for everyone. But the looks of the base Civic right now are also really strange.
But now it's like picking your tech. Which person are you? Are you more Honda person? Are you more Ford person? They're making us better drivers, but I love that the tech is pushing us farther into the fun category.
Well, and if you had either one of these cars, you would love it anytime you got to drive it hard. I do think that is better when driven hard, but I think that the Civic Type R, this is the best enthusiast car Honda has made since the S2000.
It's a
brilliant.
Civic race car.
It's
for
brilliant.
Everyone.
It is. It's great.
Despite Ford wanting it to be your only car and the ability to be your only car, if it's not being driven hard all the time, it's kind of getting relegated to second car status.
The Focus RS is the better sheer drive hard car. I don't know that I want to live with it every day. The problem with a hot hatch is you want it to be a do-it-all. In that area, the Civic just does it a little bit better.
But what if your commuter car, like this one, could go hoon through a canyon on a Saturday? What if? Honda's done it. They've done it.
If you've ever wondered, where did Honda go? Why don't they make great enthusiast cars anymore? This is the answer. This is a great car. It's a great do-everything car. Well done, Honda. I'm quite impressed.